We're the Young Indie Chronicles podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16mm budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Indiana, we are simply passing through history. This is history.
Welcome to the Young Indie Chroniclers, a podcast about the making of the show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which first aired on ABC in 1992.
Kept thinking about what was Indiana Jones like as a young man. I came up with this idea of him seeing the world through the eyes of a soldier and a secret agent.
Over the course of our podcast, we're going to talk to a whole host of very talented people who either worked on this show or were there from the beginning.
We were able to shoot it on location in the real places where these events took place.
Oh, make it up as you go. Oh boy, that's great advice.
We hired some of the best European directors, a whole host of very, very talented people.
I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom.
And I'm Daniel Noah, and this is the Young Indie Chroniclers.
There's only one rule, Indiana. Stay alive.
Welcome back to the Young Indie Chroniclers, the one and only podcast devoted specifically to the Young Indiana Jones television series and franchise. I'm your host, Peter Holmstrom. Joining me on this adventure of a lifetime is Mr. Daniel Noah.
Chasing down Mata Hari through Paris, Peter.
Aren't we all? On today's show, we're going to be presenting another of the segments we did during our epic all-day holiday live stream from back in November. This was a great 90-minute conversation we did with Laird Malamed doing a commentary for Demons of Deception.
We had a great time with Laird. As you guys might remember, this was the last day of our Kickstarter, which we did. We're actually, with late pledges, we're just shy of 50,000 right now. We're at 49,970. So if you're interested in getting yourself a copy of George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age, you could be the person to push us over that $50,000 mark quite easily. And as you'll hear, Laird joined at the McClunky tier, something I had a little fun with in the edit. I didn't do a lot of editing to this, but I sweetened certain moments, including the moment when we talk about his pledge. So look out for that. But we're excited. This is a great conversation. It's a great episode, 2 episodes edited into a movie. Some of the most interesting episodes intellectually of Young Indiana Jones really showed what the show was capable of. And really one of the best conversations we've had about it here on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Such a great time chatting with Laird. He's always great. Since then, we've actually recorded a interview with him for inclusion in George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age documentary. He, of course, brought a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise to the conversation. So we're always thrilled to be able to chat with Laird. We also wanted to announce that in addition to us looking back at our previous live stream, we have a new live stream coming up. This will be taking place in late March. The dates and info will be, of course, in our description there.
As part of that, we're planning to do some reveals, in kind of treating this a bit like a convention panel. And in that, we'll be showing some first looks at George Lucas' The Lost Golden Age. At this point, I think we've interviewed 10 or 12 people. And we have a lot of footage, a lot of great footage that no one's seen before. And so we'll be sharing some of those clips in the live stream. So you don't want to miss that if you're a fan and if you're curious about what we've been doing. You're going to get a really great look into that. And very, very excited. We're also going to be making an appearance April 11th at a local convention, the Lost Relic Market, with an Indiana Jones convention. It's been announced. You can look that up. If you're in the area, we'd love to see you there, and we'll be showing some extra clips there as well.
All right. So, Daniel, let's hop into this episode and take a look back at this commentary we did for Demons of Deception.
Our guest, who's about to join us and perhaps is in the waiting room right now, Mr. Laird Malamed, who we're going to have to say extreme thank you, has joined us at the McClunky tier.
Hey.
Yes, I bet you have.
McClunky.
Yeah, there it is.
And we were just talking about it.
Love it.
And we have a proud member of the tier, Laird Malamed, who's about to join us, has backed the project.
Amazing.
At the McClunky level.
Amazing. Well, actually, he's in the waiting room right now.
Let's bring him in. We got to say thank you.
Here, let's do it. Amazing. Laird, how are you, sir?
We
just got your gift.
So kind. I timed it purposefully. So, because I'd seen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, and congratulations on the Kickstarter project. And I actually did see. I don't know what mailing list I'm on. I guess yours maybe. And so I did see it a few weeks ago. And so your invitation was like, okay, I'll just do this before I go on. And there you go. But you guys should not be paying attention to the email and stuff. You should be focusing on this. How long have you been on now? 6 hours? Like that?
4 hours?
Yeah.
Well, we got notified. When we get a pledge, we get notified.
Yeah. But you guys you've killed it already.
Yeah.
45K or something over 15? Did I read it right?
Well, thanks to you, we're at 46.
There you go. That's a good number.
46, 50 is suddenly not looking impossible. Let me tell you.
Awesome. Well, how things are? How's all the technical stuff? We okay that way?
Laird was one of our very first guests we had on the show a couple of years ago now. Jeez. But it's and he of course worked on Young Indiana Jones as a sound engineer, and also is involved with a lot of podcasts in his own right. Works on the Indy cast, and also does the For Your Ears Only on the Bondcast, which I've always look forward to hearing.
We're still waiting for the next one.
We are still waiting. Well, thanks. It's been forever. The Bondcast, for people who don't know, is the slowest exploration of the 20 some odd Bond films, because we've been going for a decade, and we're still at Pierce Brosnan. So we did. Well, that's not true. We did do No Time to Die. So we did knock off the last Daniel Craig.
You skipped.
We skipped forward when the movie out, but it's a lot of fun. IndyCast still going strong. IndyCast is the longest running Indiana Jones podcast. We've also slowed there on the John Williams specials. Sort of. Dial of Destiny until about 2 weeks ago seemed a good place to sort of, wrap up 60 some odd episodes talking about the music of John Williams. And then it was announced that he is working on Spielberg's next film. So, we have to get back at it. There's a great bio. Yeah. Well, that'll be their 30th collaboration, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw I don't know how official this is, but I saw some rumor today, some, scoop, some leak person who's working in the orchestra. I guess they're recording stuff now, and according to the report anyway, Williams seemed very sharp, very he wasn't conducting, but and I don't know how true this was. This could just be a whatever, but it's the report anyway made it seem like he was mentally very sharp, not able to conduct anymore, but still very involved and very Still there. So I'm very
excited.
Very excited.
Any Spielberg film is exciting, and this is great.
Absolutely. Especially original Spielberg film. I'm excited for this one because it feels like it could be anything. It could just be whatever. There's no real connection to a pre-existing whatever, so it feels fresh.
Absolutely.
Well, Laird, we asked you here to talk about Demons of Deception, Young Indiana Jones episode. You worked on both parts of this during your time with Young Indy. How would you like to start us here?
Well, again, thanks for having me on, and it's great to go back, and I watched it again last night, as I said I would, and then I realized that my server wasn't categorizing things correctly, so I also fixed all that tagging. So thanks for that. Demons of Deception. I mean, as I'm sure you guys I know you guys have covered on the podcast, but maybe even today you've covered, is a amalgamation of two episodes, both from the first season. So they at least were conceived of sort of in the same kind of history. And it's I think of them still in the months that they take place, which are, I think, September and October of 1916. So the, Indies just joined the war and whatnot. Two very different episodes. I'll start on the second half and then go back to the first. So the second half being the Mata Hari episode. It was not a lot of fun to work on. It's so talky. It's just such a talky episode.
Oh no!
And which makes it look, as we're looking at the footage here of some footage that was shot for the show, and actually I think some stock footage that's in the sequence in Verdun. But the outtakes, though, this is the really talking behind school, and I hope Sean Patrick Flanery, if he even remembers me, doesn't listen too closely. But him and the Mata Hari actor, Dominique, they did not like each other, and it was obvious in the outtakes, and you could hear it in the voice rolls. Which is interesting because actually I think having a Carrie Fisher episode, let's not ignore that aspect of it. This was, Carrie Fisher wrote it, that the chemistry when they're mad at each other, when Indy and Mata Hari are mad at each other, feels right because they probably were, and the rest of it feels strange. The other thing, though, is that about the episode, though, that stood out. I mean, again, Nicolas, think of it again, the creatives behind this, Nicolas Roeg, the director of that sequence, known for some amazingly visual and auditory experience episodes, and you see that come in. You guys would get there, that's an hour from now. Oh, there's Nicolas's credit. And that was like in the show to some extent. Like a lot of the directors who came in and did this, and if you think culturally, think of Young Indy a little bit following Amazing Stories from about 5-6 years beforehand, where Spielberg brought in a lot of A-list directors to do individual episodes, and while Amazing Stories, that incarnation didn't really do all that well, didn't do the numbers, a little bit like Young Indy had sort of amazing stuff but couldn't get the audience, I think, to show up. But you had these incredible talents coming in. So plus and minus, but again, working on an episode as a sound editor, like you're looking for action and exciting and things, and not just a bunch of room tones. And I don't remember, we had to replace probably a lot of the dialogue. I can't remember if the actor who played Mata Hari's dubbed. I don't recall specifically, but often, particularly a lot of the outside stuff, you just couldn't use the dialogue, so we had to replace that. So we tried to find kind of a set of tone. It was great, obviously, to see Ian McDermott in the episode. That was a lot of fun. We didn't know that when we got the cut. Well, I was like, oh, cool. Long before he, really had all of his parts, we knew he was coming, but that was about it. So the second half was more of like just a standard episode, much to do in terms of, from the sound editing side. From the editing side, as I said, I mean, there is some interesting flashbacks. It's also kind of, the only flip of that is it's not really an indie thing to have flashbacks, right? Or flash forwards, I guess. Actually, they're like indie sort of bring what's going on, and Mata Hari sort of seeing the future to some extent. And I think at the time, I mean, one of the things that's great about this show is, if you had some interest at all, like, these are all historical figures we're seeing on screen here. These people all existed, and Mata Hari existed. And I think I probably would have answered the question wrong. Was Mata Hari a spy, and was she guilty of treason? Because that's what she was executed for. That's what we see in the show. But it's actually not true. She was framed, or at least wasn't as true as what she was convicted of. And but heck, the French were good at that. Following right. Things at the end of the at the end of the 1900s.
Yeah.
So go ahead and start rambling. Go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just, it is so fascinating though. Like, do you have a sense, like, why was she framed? Like, was it just some jealous old guy who was like, and then decided to set her up, or what was the? It's
because as I understand, because the war was going badly. I mean, that's a good transition to Verdun. But it was one of those situations where, like, they were looking for scapegoats, political situation, and she probably was. I mean, she was sleeping with most of the command folks in Paris, and was probably privy to secrets. But it's kind of, I guess, one of those things. I mean, she was only about 40 when she was killed. And so, she was, a demon of deception. And actually, where I think that the title actually works, and I didn't really think about this until I watched it last night, is that Indy's deceiving himself too. Yeah. And, and so he's just as culpable, even if he's sort of just done the sort of heroic thing in the Verdun, at the end of the Verdun episode, where he fakes the bike getting destroyed, or sort of combines what didn't happen on the first air attack with what he wanted to do. So Verdun, the first half, I mean, for us, that was, it was like watching Paths of Glory with Indy in it. And in fact, a lot of the Young Indy episodes have this sequence here is more of a Great Escape kind of remembrance, although the episode he would have just finished, escaping out of the prison, was also kind of a Great Escape homage. And in those situations, like here in Verdun, like is he acting like somebody who's just been in prison and been in the Battle of the Somme? But those two episodes are a season away, and so this is where you see some of the continuity not necessarily make sense. But this sort of stuff, pulling all this motorcycle stuff, we went and recorded motorcycles for all of these sequences, combining it with what Ben, Burt, and Gary Rydstrom had in the library. But we had to go get their own stuff. Did not go and record canons, unfortunately. That would have been way cool, but we had to just make those up. Stuff like that. Also, although we've passed it already, the Wilhelm scream is like within the first 30 seconds of this episode, which we didn't use in every single episode, but this one was an obvious place to put it. You know, the famous scream from the 50s that's kind of was in every George Lucas production until, I guess, Matt replaced it. Matt Wood replaced it at some point, I think, going to the sequel trilogy. So this had a ton more to do, right? Because we had one of the things that my boss, Tom Belfort, on this was great at is he lived in the East Bay, and I think he tapped into Cal's University of California, Berkeley's like amazing sort of international flavor. And so we would bring in groups of native speakers. So for this episode, French, and for other episodes, German or Italian, or American or British or whatnot, so that the sort of the bed of dialogue felt like not only like speaking the right language, but was actually spoken by native speakers, just to give a little bit more truthfulness. And they were given a few lines, like here for the, this was an all male group we brought in, things about the war, or, think about memories of home, or what they might say in the trenches and things like that. So not only were there the obvious things that do, like the explosions and the shelling and even on the Foley stage, which is, where you do synchronous sound recording, throwing up dirt and other stuff like that to try to get a sense of the ground being displaced. But even back to him, and we did this in the Paris side of it as well, he's like trying to make you feel like you were there. And so that was a lot of fun. And of course, the episode's so powerful. I mean, this score is haunting. And Joel McNeely's work is probably some of his finest work on the show is actually in this episode, or both these episodes actually, but really in the Verdun episode.
Absolutely. It, really, we should have offered this as a VHS for Joel's signature.
Well, there isn't one, or we would have. This was never put on VHS, right. So this cut was available on DVD. Of course, the Japanese Laserdisc we love talking about had both episodes, actually, which we have the original cuts. But the DVD in 2007 and Christmas, I remember, because it was the first thing I put in when I got the set, because I'd never seen it. I didn't watch these when they aired. So as soon as I had the DVD, this was the first one I went to, and I was blown away by it. I'd actually heard the music, I think, because the albums were out there, and I didn't know what it was to. And it's incredible. Both of them are incredible, very mature. Both very director-driven episodes with Renee and then Nicolas Roeg. Like, they're very visually unique episodes because of who directed them. And they're really, I don't know how you watched it when it aired, but you're watching it in chronological order. You really start to see some of that artistic freedom in these episodes.
Yeah. This was one of the ones. I mean, I have all the VHS tapes, and this is like they kind of stopped right before they got to this one. And, they had to, as you've talked about on your podcast, some of the story beats that old Indy related had to then be sort of snuck into the story, into the bridges or whatnot. But actually, this one starts without a lot of that exposition. You don't, and I think it just because it's visually powerful. And, in watching it again last night, I was thinking about 1917, the recent, sort of one-shot film. And I'm like, gosh, some of this footage could have just been in 1917. Maybe it's the way you shoot trenches, but it felt like that in the moment immersion that, is, you're really trying to, like, this is where Indy's getting a real conscience about war. And you can see why. And what I actually also love about this episode, that structurally, is we start on the very broad but very impersonal what's going on here. By the way, those close-up shots of the machine gun were shot at Skywalker's ranch. They needed inserts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then we built a little bunker across to the tech building, and Ben Burt shot those, which was, we didn't have any of the blood. We just had the close-up of the machine gun. But so you're starting, sort of wide. We really don't know who the characters are too much, right? And then as we go forward, and as Indy here, this is the person's just given Indy the box to take back to his wife in the south of France. But we move closer and closer to then Indy has the experience being attacked while he's doing the currying, right? To now not Indy, but Remy is going to the front. Not the, spoiler alert, by the way, folks. And I love that's, it's written in such a way that Indy doesn't have any choice at the end, right? If Indy had made that choice at the beginning, you wouldn't have understood it. But if you see how Indy goes from like, oh, this is just horrible, but it's sort of, I'm looking through a lens, I'm looking through the telescope or whatever that is, the binoculars. And, so it's still distanced, right? Yeah. And then I'm getting attacked, but yeah, it's one airplane. It's, and I survived it and things like that. And, and then I'm like seeing the ridiculousness of the leadership. And then finally, no, the jeopardy is that my best friend is going back to the front, right? And he's lucky to have survived his first attack or whatever he got shot with. And then, here we go. I guess he got shot in the Somme. And then here we're going to, like I can be responsible one way or the other. And so I love that. I think that's, I think just really strong storytelling. I mean, that's what's great about the show.
The church scene is just so haunting. And as we learned from Renee, it was kind of a last minute addition to have it set in a church. The script called for a hospital, and they found this location.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it adds so many layers to it, I feel. It seems like something that would have been, front and center of the writer's mind. Yeah. It's like, oh, it'll be set in a church, and it'll be dilapidated, and there'll be, crucifixes everywhere, and it's all moody, and it's like, yeah, that is something that a screenwriter would write, but it's like, no, it was originally, it was something that they found kind of by accident.
That's that's great. I mean, that's filmmaking is often that. Yeah. It's Orson Welles talked about that he sort of you take advantage of what's in front of you, even you have all the plans, and still maybe only Hitchcock could really pull off everything planned, but even then he would take advantage of things. So it's the fact that they were given the time to do that on the show, and that they then survived the editorial process. Right, George didn't come back and say, I guess if they had shot that, he's not going to go back and make it into a hospital. But he went with it, right? He allowed that to play out, which is great.
You get the feeling that George would get excited by things like that. Like something comes in and he has that same reaction we do, where it's like, oh, you shot it in a church?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now the music has to match. Now the mood, we have to lean into this, and how do we build it out? The sound design you guys did, the pain and the moaning and all that. It follows.
Yeah, again, that's the loop group, the people we brought in to, so we had them moan and do all those other things. And then you get to the right level. I mean, you don't want it to overwhelm the scene. Ultimately, you're trying to bring the viewer into the moment with Indy. Try to, at that point, where Indy's trying to comprehend it, and then you have to end by understanding, Remy can come off as ridiculous if you're not careful, because, he's not really shot. He didn't just have surgery. He's trying, he's trying to emote that. And it's interesting to see that the thing that calms him down is the cigarettes, which you go, gosh, how horrible, but like, at least he feels better. Like, so you're left with that conflict, which I think is great. This is just a really, really well written episode. I mean, that's part of it too.
Absolutely. I forgot this.
And here, even the different nationalities represented in the Belgian army. It's almost has. I was reflecting on this too. I was reflecting on a couple of things I was watching it, which is one, that the quality of the writing is timeless, and it's something that actually was just recently said about. I don't know if you know the Star Trek podcast with the guys from Enterprise. And they were talking to Rick Berman. Yeah, exactly. And they were talking to those guys and said, like, why is kind of some of this current Star Treks don't feel quite right on? And Rick Berman was saying that they're not timelessly written. They're written very today. And we were watching an episode the other day, and the music was like, yeah, it's just very today. It's fine, whatever. And when you go and watch something like this, and why it still holds up, they're writing at a literary level that you don't need the reference to the 90s to understand why it's here. Even though Sean Patrick's haircut, is besides
that's your reference to the 90s.
It is. And he's also somewhat, has to have some consistency with River Phoenix.
Sure.
And I think that was part of the decision there. But this reminded me of in Henry V that you have the four friends, the Fluella and a few other folks that represent Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England. And so here I feel like here you have the allies of the war represented. And of course, the subject matter here is obviously very serious.
But even this location feels like the Brana, the tavern basement that they are in the Brana Henry V.
Yeah,
visually shares a lot with this.
Which is at this point is only about 3 or 4 years old. That movie. Yeah,
100%, very contemporary. We talked about that with even like Last Temptation of Christ. Like they're talking about Kazantzakis. That movie just came out. You know, like it's not like an old movie. We're talking. It's like no, that was a contemporary thing, and so it's part of the conversation. And Henry V is absolutely that.
Absolutely.
They reuse this track. I know we're not hearing it, but the music in this scene in Attack of the Hawkmen when he's in the house with the planes on the wall, the deaths, it's the same track, which was probably for convenience, but also linking the scenes together is not a bad thing to do. It's a similar kind of emotion.
I didn't work on Attack of the Hawkmen. I had left already. But I think Joel did that score. Yeah,
he did.
And I've had conversations with Joel on and off over the years. I just am so frustrated. We archived all this music, and I don't know what's held up a box set or a series of box sets between, like Entrada or La La Land and working with Disney. I mean, Entrada has the better relationship with the label Entrada Records in Oakland. And Joel has wanted that for years. And I think, but I don't know if it was just caught up with Indy being so slow to get to the fifth movie or Disney or whatnot. But and also probably the rights that the Varese folks have from the first 4 albums, which were very nice suites that we put together for them. We put that together for them and sent it to them. So Robert Townsend was the producer on those.
Well, Joel told us in our interview, he mentioned that, and that that Seth MacFarlane also was very supportive, and they were hoping to sort of pitch it to Disney as something that they would produce. So we're, of course, very supportive of that. And next time we talk to Joel, ask him if there's been any movement on it. But,
Yeah, I'll have to send him a message because I'm just like, look, I'll contribute.
Right. We'll fund the thing. Come on.
Yeah. This music that there were about 6 composers, Joel, being one of the primary ones. And, this score, actually, I think what's interesting also, and particularly in Verdun, is the use of the classical music. And here you have, and it's pretty much associated with the generals. And so here's these refined, sophisticated, if you will, folks, and they're listening to German music, which is true. And, but they're sort of missing the point of it. I think is part of their, it's, besides the diegetic nature of the piano playing in the dinner scene, just in general. In fact, the show uses a lot, when, in Ogawa, the Schweitzer Agunga episode, obviously that's very heavily influenced by Bach and Mozart. So again, I think it speaks to the sophisticatedness of the show, which, again, stands out after all these years.
This is the scene we were just talking about in the church hospital with the cigarettes.
Great scene.
The way this episode's lit, I mean, I'm pretty sure David Tattersall shot it, and it's so different. It's clearly Renee and him talking about this is the look we want because it's so different and yet it's just completely signature. That he can change his style like that is really impressive.
It's fantastic. At some points it's vignetted, like there's an actual circle around, particularly in the later sequences with Betamax, and and I don't think it's an element of like the transfer now opening up the frame all the way. I think it was literally almost picking up a sort of 16th century painterly style of the really focusing the eye on what really mattered and whatnot. So yeah, more Indy riding around. That street never looked like it was in France to me. I don't know.
Is this? Did you guys shoot that in Skywalker?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
No. This is. It does look like Northern California, but this stuff I think was shot
probably Prague. It's because they shot this episode in Prague. Yeah,
they probably shot this in Prague. I mean, the plane I would suspect is a combination of wherever they could find the plane. There's only a couple shots of the helicopter and the plane that were actually shot together. You can kind of see the visual effects. It's one of the reasons why this is stuck in DVD resolution, because all the effects were like that's an effect shot, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a comp, and that's not Indy. It's not Sean Patrick on the bike in that sequence either.
Yeah, you can see it even in DVD. You can see. Yeah, it looks good, but
yeah, it goes by fast. If you stare at anything too long, you'll see everything. But
it still looks, miles ahead of whatever else was being produced at the time on
television for sure.
Yeah. It's a fantastic.
Well,
work.
It was MacGyver level budgets. That's what we kept talking about, but. Which were about $1 million an episode.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a lot today, but then it was, double a studio shot.
We take it if anybody has a spare $1 million or a line around.
There's still time. The Kickstarter is still
time.
Yeah. You have to add the extra special secret reward.
The big tier, yeah.
For $1 million, we will be your slave. I don't know.
I mean, forever? Or like, is it time bound?
Well,
I mean, I don't know. 7 years, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
That's true.
It's big explosion there. You don't expect Indy to walk back from that.
He's fine.
Okay. It's the blooded jacket.
I thought that I'm more surprised the bike survived it.
Yeah.
But But this little bit here, there's some old Howard Hawks movies from the 30s, and I'm forgetting that they blend together because he did a bunch that were about like World War I fighters and there's submarines and Corvettes something or other, or that he may have produced that, Chris Nimby. And the little salute thing I thought was an homage to sort of, if not specifically to one of the Howard Hawks movies,
absolutely,
but to that sort of era of filmmaking in the 30s, when that's again only 15 years out from the war.
Yeah. Right. Did he do
a lot of that?
Did he do the Dawn Patrol? I forget.
Dawn Patrol. That's the one I'm thinking of, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, Dawn Patrol. Yeah.
Great movie. Errol Flynn, Basil Rathbone. Fantastic film, and very, very similar in a lot of ways to. I guess more Attack of the Hawkmen, I might say, but definitely you get glimmers of it here as well. But great film, worth checking out for anybody who's interested.
And I think that in not being privy to being in the writers' room, but which really were like sort of weekend long conferences. There really wasn't a writers' room like we think of today on TV, where they literally come to work every day and they sit in the writers' room. But this was more of a sort of retreat structure, because I remember the days that the folks were there because we saw them all, and so they'd work intensely. The library team at Lucas would have a ton of material available to them. I remember at one point saying to some of them, like, why can't you get George Gershwin into an episode? And then he showed up, but I don't think that was me, but I'll go with it. And so they were collecting all that material. I think this is a speculation that a lot of the folks that end up on the DVD behind the scene videos are folks that they had spoken to in doing historical research. And then they went back to them to film them for the specials, and which are, there's often longer special material than the episodes, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so they would work intensely over the weekend. But I think there was a lot of drawing on old films because George loved them. And I mean, you'd walk around the hallways, you'd see the posters. So you sort of couldn't help but to be influenced. But never quite derivative. It's not like if you look at Battlestar Galactica, the original Battlestar Galactica from the 70s, where, when they went from mini movies to like episodic, half the episodes are like, oh, that's the Seven Samurai episode. That's
it's
whatever.
Western town, always.
Yeah, exactly. These feel more integrated, or they feel more amalgamations of a number of influences.
Right.
And therefore they can sit on those shoulders, but they don't feel like that they're clones of those other works.
I think the biggest thing too is that each of these has its own specific theme to it. I think about this episode in particular and how it's really hammering in this, kind of feels like George is really commenting on the nature of war and how it's there to profit the rich who never really have to fight. And, the dichotomy between the upper class and the low, quote unquote, lower class of the common soldier. And it's something that, the Dawn Patrol, it's a great movie, but the Dawn Patrol is more about just like war sucks and people, you come into it being all maybe light and swashbuckling, but then by the end you're beaten down and you want it to be over. But it doesn't really like comment on like the nature of war and how futile it is just in general,
Yeah.
Whereas Young Indy is very much just like, guys, this is all just craziness. Like this was all basically for nothing. And it's a very specific take. So really George is, he's paying homage, but he's not stealing by any sense.
Well, and that's why, as I said, this is more Paths of Glory, Stanley Kubrick's film for me than it is Dawn Patrol. But the Hawks films are sort of bound together as much of anything. I mean, he was a very sort of not showy director, but the camaraderie which does exist in Young Indy, particularly as you get to like Phantom Train of Doom and whatnot, that's in the Hawks films. That yes, it sucks, but we're all in it together, and that sort of well-oiled machine has its own value and whatnot. Yeah. Here, I mean, you asked earlier about did I think Mata Hari was ultimately executed as a spy. Part of the background on Verdun is that it had been going on since like the early part of 16, and General Folk, or Grand Marshal Folk, whatever his name is, the guy who comes in and says, keep attacking, no matter what. His whole thing was about the Somme, and he was starving Pétain before he fired him. Actually, he promoted him out of the way. He was starving him of troops and materiel because he was storing it up for the Battle of the Somme, which just ended up like Verdun. And Verdun never actually was won. Verdun just sort of ended at the end of 16. It's the photo you see on the air reconnaissance is from 1916, and there's a fort, a very famous fort that they talk a little bit, Dumont, I think it is. And it was sort of a French national symbol. And the fact that it fell, and by the way, fell to like 3 Germans who didn't fire a shot because it was not well defended, was then a blight. The American equivalent probably is when the White House was burned in the War of 1812, and or Pearl Harbor being attacked, although the sort of different scales. And so the politicalness around, as is referenced in the episode, I was like, I'm not just fighting a war, I'm sort of fighting the politics and whatnot. But then as we see, this is why I think these 2 episodes work well together. It's not like anyone in Paris seems to be suffering all that much. Right. You need to watch the Paris episode after having seen this with that in mind, that they're having parties and 65th birthday parties for the, whatever, sub general or whatever he is, and going to exotic dances, and prostitution is, I guess that's probably not influenced by the war one or the other, but they don't look like they're suffering. Right. Paris is very gay and elegant, even though the war is 45 miles away.
It's such an interesting point. I never really considered it through that lens, but you're absolutely right. Like it really does make for a kind of required pairing almost. Like we were talking earlier about how like at some point we hope to talk to James Luceno, who wrote the book that's basically this two-parter, but he wrote the book before the VHS DVD cut was created. So like even, in 1993, 1994, they were clearly thinking like these two episodes belong together. And I think he really nailed it there as to why. I mean, it really is fascinating to think about how like Paris was so close to the front lines, and yet nobody really cared.
I mean, you could hear the shelling in Paris, even if it wasn't affecting your day to day. And and I think then from an Indiana Jones point of view, right? He's indignant if you there's some unfilmed episodes like Le Havre when he goes through basic training. As I think you've talked about that or referenced that. And so you see him sort of being broken down, and then he goes into the Somme, and he's captured. Then he, has the escape. There's actually another missing episode, which is late August 1916. So the VHSs go, right, he escapes on the motorcycle and he gets out of Germany. Yeah. But actually he ended up in Berlin, and so he got to the heart of the Reich, if you will. And because he speaks German fluently, which is then paid off in this episode, he is able to sort of be useful and get out and sort of start some of his espionage activities that then pay off later. And so, but then Indy is then pulled into the deceptions, as I said earlier. And so Paris almost becomes like he has to go through hell or through the desert before he transfers to Africa. And then his rebirth almost comes up through the Albert Schweitzer sequences, right? Where not only is he gone from this is horrible, but now he's actually been given another level, I think, of consciousness that is echoed in, some of the Corey Carrier episodes, particularly the slavery one. But he's too young to really know what it means and to have enough actionability until he's a teenager and whatnot. And then think of him then as Indy then ends up, back in Princeton and he's out of sync with his old girlfriend, right, who's now married and has a kid anyway, Robin Lively's character, Nancy. But because he's had this whole experience. And so I think this is really the low point for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's sort of seen it all, and then he sort of rises through it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's such a good encapsulation there of kind of what makes the series so fascinating. I think too many people can be dismissive of it, but it's so dealing with just really, really wonderful storytelling. And I think so. As a side note, we're still looking for those unproduced episodes. If anyone out there happens to have those scripts, but I
don't have the scripts. I just have the lists.
Yeah. But it's really fascinating to ponder what might have been, and even just this 44 episodes, it feels very complete of an arc. But there are still other chapters that have been.
Yeah, I'm blanking what happens between Paris and East Africa. There were 2 episodes.
Like there were supposed to be a couple episodes there? Yeah,
every month was covered. Like there was the story beat for every month. And I don't have it in front of me, otherwise I could look it up. But it's something in Europe. There's another European sequence before he transfers to Africa, which of course also Mata Hari tells him, go to Africa, it's safer.
Yeah, that's sort of the connective. That's the link that you have is that conversation, and then they're in Africa in the next episode.
But it does make sense that he would there would be more connective tissue there because it is quite abrupt. He's just in Africa, you
got me curious. I'll have to ping you guys later when I look at my scans
Thank you.
those documents.
I appreciate it. But it's it's just wonderful. Just really just, I mean, this episode really stands out as well as just like, it's so expressive in so many ways, whether it's production design, cinematography, the action scenes, kind of the arc, the music, as we talked about before. It's really just, everything's just kind of firing on all cylinders. And to think though, that this is still very early, this was season 1 material.
It's funny. I love the way, because it's 4:3, the show by nature has to be staged in a way that's more similar to early, 30s, 40s filmmaking. And so, a lot of this is evocative of, older classic films, and it's set in an older time too. And so it really is very rewarding if you've seen films like that to feel that connection to it.
Yeah. But well, even some of the sequence before this, there was the groups walking. That was a doubling and tripling shot. But so that was sort of as far as they could go that way. I think they would have added a ton more people if they'd had the budget. But even the way Indy was revealed from behind the motorcycle and just previous to that. And then what I love here is how it will stay focused on Remy in the shot, and Indy will recede into the background. And one, holding that in a form, as you said, in a classic aspect ratio, but two, storytelling with it, right? Like, we should have shifted our sort of thoughts to Remy by this back and forth that, he's a soldier. He has to go on. He has to go do this here. And this is all one take, right? That's a pretty long take. I'm pretty sure we replaced all that dialogue because it was too noisy. Right? Look at just even how they're holding him there. It's just great, right?
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
Those images there, those are actually original, not original, but those were taken by reconnaissance in the war.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. That's again, that attention to detail. Yeah, it's really, really remarkable. And it's one thing that, I mean, there's many reasons why the kind of the DVD editions improve on the originals, but you can watch the original cut on the Laserdisc, which we got a hold of.
Yeah,
and the bookends for that in particular feel so. Like, the old Indy points out that, like, they, for all of his work to stave off the attack, they still attack the next day, So it's like, and it feels so like, oh God, but here it's so nice just to have, at least you get the sense that Indy did something, even though it is a low point, as you say, but it's still this feeling of like, he did make a difference.
He made a difference for the day. Yeah, exactly. And that's maybe what all we can do. Actually, I think his low point is with Mata Hari. I think that he's actually at a vulnerable point when he makes that decision, and the fact that he actually tells Remy about it. Of course, he has to explain what's going on, but you get the sense, even in the bookends, that he actually hasn't told anybody about it until he's telling the story as a 90-year-old.
Oh, interesting.
That's my sense of it. That he's kept that to himself.
Yeah, interesting.
Again, this great lighting here with the shadow and the light, half shadowed, half light. So even Petain is not without culpability here. I mean, he did run the campaign for 8 months before he was sacked. So
no, it's true. And Rene Manzour talked to us about how he had asked for a brief dialogue change in the bookend for this episode because Petain had complicated politics as the years went on, and wasn't and he wanted to kind of tip the hat to that in the bookend, because for the French audience watching it, they'd be like, this they know more of this guy's history than just this, so they want that addressed, and how hard it is to stand by your convictions as time goes on. But
well, I mean, he was the person who capitulated in World War II. So, that is that complicated history. But,
complicated.
Well, but if you look at it, too, it's like he also saw all this destruction, right? I think I think the way the episode's written, if you know that history of him, you sort of see what created his view 20 years later of the suffering and the wastefulness of it all.
Absolutely. No, and it's true. It's that's just what I love about this show, is that it gives that nuance. It gives those layers, to these things. I think so much of our history books and our, rhetoric in schools just make wars seem very black and white, and they kind of just regurgitate the marketing for whatever war there is, because war is always seen as like a black and white issue. But when you really dig into it, it's like, no, it's not. It never is, and it's always far more nuanced. And at the core of it is that, people die. And that's the worst thing of all, that, the White House press secretaries try to ignore.
Well, there was a comment in the chat earlier. One of the watchers from the UK in discussion of this episode was saying, if you're in European history, if you were a man of fighting age, they'd give you a gun, meaning, basically treated you like cannon fodder. It wasn't was no entry exam, no fitness test. And they didn't really care, if you got shot because you were slow, and wasn't seen as something that they felt responsibility for. And this episode, as you were kind of saying, is really the darkest. This and the next one are the darkest the show gets. It's the darkest episode. Because of that, there's a deep inhumanity to the behavior of the generals. And then, in the next one, it's a little more nuanced, perhaps, as to who's being inhuman to who. And that's sort of what's being argued about. And I love that final scene with Mata Hari and Indy. You can just hear Carrie Fisher coming off the page, that final argument that they have. But the show, it dips here and then it kind of pulls out, as you say. But what an emotionally rich arc for the series that we really probably don't deserve, given how difficult it was for them to get all the episodes produced in like the order of season 2 and season 3, and like figuring this all out and doing it out of order. I mean, we really got lucky.
We really did.
A person who should be credited behind the scenes is Bob Iger, because he gave George the time to figure out. We were late. I mean, the Disney execs came. I don't know if Bob was one of them. I wouldn't have known his name at the time. He was running ABC TV at the time, though. It came in October of '92, I want to say. And we had to like quickly prepare kind of the best of everything we had, which included scenes from Verdun and scenes from London and the movie of the week, or Curse of the Jackal, as it was known then. And they they basically said, okay, you can have the March start date, and they wanted it for January. And then the show was just not going to be ready. Or I think the issue was there would be a handful of episodes, and then we'd go dark for like 8 weeks. And so they delayed it till March of '93. And then again, it's only the season 1's very short, as you know, and whatnot. But that's something that is as I understand, or as Bob Iger has written, one of the reasons why George only called Disney when he was ready to sell was because Bob Iger, and of course Bob Iger's book, so maybe it's a little self-serving, but I believe it. And the loyalty gets repaid for understanding that. And now whether or not George thinks that Disney has done well by the Star Wars properties since the sale, I guess, is a matter of some debate, and it varies between The Mandalorian at the high and maybe episode 8. Somewhere in there. So I actually don't know. Actually, but now that I just picked on Rian Johnson's movie as we wait for his third LeBlanc film to come out, I actually think it's one of the most interestingly directed films in the series. The 8th film, but canon wise, you're just like, I don't know what you're doing. JJ had to redo it, and I think to bring it back to Indiana Jones, or even to your what you're here doing the long telethon for, is that George was so hands on that the importance of having the homages to past films, or the consistency of the character, or the high quality of the writing, or I remember at one point he lamented we didn't record enough new sound effects. I remember he came and complained about that. It's like, stop using the library, go record new sound effects.
Nice.
He just had heard them so many times that he was on the dubbing stage, and it's like, why am I keep hearing the same sound effects? His attentiveness to that. That was so important to him. And so whether it's in Radioland or the first, you could say what you want about episodes 1, 2, and 3, but they are crafted as for better or for worse. I think for better, but I find, frankly, going back to these episodes or to episode 1 far more enjoyable than going back to some of the later material. We've been trying to watch Ahsoka for like 2 years. So, it's not even it's not even bad. It's fine. It's good. It's well produced, but it doesn't grab like Ahsoka and the live action versus Ahsoka and the Clone Wars with George's oversight and all that. It's just a far more interesting character.
Yeah.
I think part of a big reason why we're doing this documentary is George always pushed, and he pushed hard to do new things, whatever that new thing was. It was pushing for the work, And I think today there's a lot of people that are just saying like, well, no, the library's fine. Just keep going back to the library.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they've not recorded a single new Chewbacca sound, and maybe not an R2-D2 sound, in the Disney era. I think if you listen to those movies, it's, if you know these like I do, you're like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's from over there. And I understand someone might be like, you want me to try to recreate that? Like, I get the challenge of like, you have to go out and do it. But, Ben Bird is available. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely.
No comment on that. I love Ben. And I don't know that he was always treated as well as he should have been.
No, 100%.
But on R2-D2, it doesn't bother me because what would have changed R2-D2's sounds in the centuries that R2-D2's been around? Chewbacca, on the other hand, doesn't. There should have been an older, not just an EQing of Chewbacca's sounds to make sound older, but an actual wisdom and sageness, if you will, particularly post Han's death.
Yeah.
No, he looks younger now than he did in A New Hope. The way they've recreated him, and I'm sure it was because they wanted Chewie to be like this fixture of the franchise because they killed off everyone else. But it's they overstepped, and they both want him there. They treat him more like a piece of furniture.
Well, let's not get too negative. Let's not get too negative. Now we're slipping into it. I can feel it. We've now arrived in the second half. We've arrived in the second half of the film. That's one of those anachronisms I love. They're like, laughing at giggling at these girls. We've just come from this horrific, war episode, and it's like, hey, look, girls, But it's probably also somewhat realistic.
I'm also fascinated by Remy's fluctuating facial hair throughout the series. It'll appear, then it'll vanish, then it'll reappear, then it'll go away again.
The only place that I know what you're talking about, I've noticed it too. It does make sense to me that he's clean shaven when he's off to the front again, because he would have had to, get a haircut as someone yells at somebody earlier. But I think his preferred look is the mustache and whatnot.
Got this one, yeah. No, agreed.
But
I guess I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I guess we're meant to believe they are going like month to month with this. So it's kind of like this is 30 days after the last hour. Is that what we're kind of meant to believe?
Some time is supposed to have passed. It's not, because even in the scene, we kind of skipped the bridging scene that they added. They're speaking about the events in the past tense. Like, it's not like Indy was immediately with Remy. It's like they're together now and they're catching up on what happened, but it's been some time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is where they do suffer when the bridging scenes are literally just filling an exposition that was in old Indy's narration or introductions and whatnot. That it's too close together, or there's not enough dissolves to make you feel that time frame, or they've dropped the date piece. But except for the episodes that, like Somme and Germany, are the same month and notably are meant to be. But even that and those episodes, even like in the Russian Revolution episode, it's July of 1917, but it's basically takes place in June because it ends on Indy's birthday, which is July 1st. So even then, it was never.
They weren't too slavish to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was that the events that were possible in the month aligned. And then down to the days, I don't think the calendar was that specific. I doubt it at that point.
Well, now that we're in the Nicolas Roeg section, similar to the last one, I really feel like, even though it's just David Tattersall again, this looks like a Nicolas Roeg movie. I mean, if you watch a few movies from the 80s that he was doing and the style he was in, the way it's lit, the way the camera's moving, it really reads like a Nick Roeg. Later, he does some of those like abstract camera moves and sort of weird perspective stuff, like Are You in a Dream? You can, I watched Eureka, it's a very interesting movie, and you see a lot of that in there. And it also has like flash forwards and things like that.
A lot, and actually, as in a Nicolas Roeg, I think, film here, even the fact that they're not holding focus on Ian McDermott's character and Professor Levy is, even though you could hold it in, and you certainly had enough light to do it, it's purposeful, right? It's and even here behind Indy, the porcelain going out of focus, that's different than how the last episode was shot, which has a lot of sharp focus throughout, and here it's really meant to bring the characters, I think, off the background, bring them more alive. I mean, some of the dialogue here is very exposition-y kind of silliness. And again, pointing out, like, yeah, there's a war going on. Yeah, I'm glad you noticed, and whatnot. So, but I agree with you on Tattersall's work. It's just very chameleon-like in a good way. Yeah,
that's my favorite McDermott line. He bikes every day.
I love day. Which actually feels very today. You know, let's get that guy a Garmin and a Strava subscription for Christmas. You know, imagine how many miles he'd rack up. Anyway,
crazy. And the bikes they were riding, oof, no cushion.
No.
Yeah, but you're right. Here they go. It's hard to get fruit this time of year. That's the conversation they're having. You know.
Yeah.
It's exactly. So basic.
Laird, this is an obscure question, but and I don't expect you to know the answer to it, but perhaps you do. Rick McCallum has talked about how there was an original actress hired to play Mata Hari. Do you happen to know who that is? I've tried to track her down, but I've been unsuccessful.
Oh, that does. I forgot about that. That's right. They did. Yeah. They did switch out people. I do not know.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's Rick only refers to her as like a friend of Linda Hamilton or something, but not no more detail than that. So a Dutch actress, but
well, I wonder would they have tried? Wait, Dutch? Would they have tried to get Sylvia Kristel for this?
Oh wow, that would be
interesting. I could see them trying. She might have been a little too old, but
George is a fan. But
would she have been
that
too
is
old?
interesting.
Maybe no. I mean, she could have done it because she's supposed to be older than him, right? So like, even if she was in her 40s, yeah.
Well, Sylvia Kristel would have been, what, 22, 23 when she did Emmanuel? So that's early 70s.
Sounds right.
20 years. She would have been in her mid-40s, yeah.
So, yeah, she probably could have played 40, right? Easily.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could see them trying to do that, you know, if it would make all the sense in the world. And who knows why it would have fallen through. Money, probably. Right. You know?
As Rick describes it, it was because she had spent like 6 months, whoever this actress was, spent like 6 months helping Linda Hamilton train for like Terminator 2.
So she was like a bodybuilder then, maybe.
I guess it's very vague because it's not like she was a Dutch actress. So it was someone who was not like a stunt woman or something.
Well, we'll call James Cameron and we'll ask him.
Let's get Linda. Get Linda on the line.
I think the odds of it being Sylvia Kristel are low because I think Disney would have balked at the possibility of linking their family show to Emmanuel and the Emmanuel sequels. I think that's probably too easy. Even then, people would have known the name, or certainly it was look upable, and would have said, well, that's why, maybe it makes sense in some ways that she's sexually free if you equate that with Sylvia Kristel. But it just probably would have been either too on the nose or too much to say they sort of lost the plot and are going for this, sort of scandalous. I don't know if she was considered a scandalous actor, but no, I think
it absolutely, it's a statement, and it's not necessary to make the statement if people aren't into it.
I think the other thing too is I don't think she's very tall. And I actually think part of this, Sean Patrick Flanery is actually not all that short, and I think they wanted, between the height of the actor and also that she's wearing heels a lot, the sense of her dominating the sequences. I mean, even here, if you see where her eyes are, they're almost always above his when they're in two shots.
Interesting.
For a lot of these dialogue sequences, and so that's Nick Roeg obviously putting that. I mean, look, you see Indy's kind of in the middle of the frame. It's about the same here, but just trying to match the eye lines. But when they're together, you feel the power difference between the two.
I never thought of that, but that's really, really smart. Because I remember looking this up, and like the real life Mata Hari wasn't tall; like she was quite short, and it always bumped me here. But now you say that, I'm like, man, that's so smart.
Yeah, it's clearly for artistic purposes. We're trying to make him look young. She's older, right? And when there were all those scenes of them walking in Paris, you see it there because they're standing up.
Yeah, because I think I even asked Rick about this because it occurred to me. I was like, well, Carrie Fisher was age appropriate at the time.
Why did I cast Carrie Fisher?
She actually looked quite similar to Mata Hari at the time, and but it's very possible that early on in the development they were like, no, we should have this type of a actress, and so she was just never.
Well, we know from talking to Rick that Nick Roeg was very invested in this episode, and that's all we're going to say about it.
Yeah,
that's all we can say. But I'm sure there was no detail. Even Gavin said, they would look for locations and they would drive by, buildings, and he'd be like, let's go there. It was very like gut and like instinct, but he was involved in all these decisions. So from the casting to the lighting to the wardrobe, even probably the fog there, right, is probably all these things they wanted, and we're like, let's do it.
There's when they're at the tryst location, and there's this huge thing of fog coming. I'm like, I could just hear Nicolas Roeg on the side. More fog. It's not cloudy enough. It's not clear enough that it's a murky situation or whatnot. I think that over the years I've sort of come to the conclusion that auteur theory of filmmaking isn't really right. That I think that the relationship of films and TV when they're made to the time they're made in is as big an influence in the crew and whatnot. But there are certain directors like Nick Roeg where I'm like, actually it works there. It works with Hitchcock, as I mentioned earlier. Interestingly, like I don't think it works with some of the French New Wave directors as much as, even though they came up with the idea. It's like Truffaut. I think Truffaut, his films changed and whatnot over the years. I think if he had lived, he died very early of cancer. I can imagine him given an opportunity to work on Young Indy. I don't know if he would have done it or not, but he would have. I'm sure George was a huge fan, particularly of like 400 Blows and Jules and Jim and early Truffaut films. So I can imagine him calling up and saying, like, hey, you want to direct an episode of Indiana Jones? And it's interesting to think of folks who didn't work on this, what they would have done with it.
I know it's one of the sad things is that the show ended when it did, because it is interesting to ponder that. There was always talk of Spielberg coming in to direct an episode at some point, and that never was able to happen. But I think George
asked him to do the Harrison bookends and Scandals. Not Scandals, Mystery of the Blues.
Mystery of the Blues.
Yeah, and I think schedule-wise or something prevented him from shooting those. But, it was hard enough to get Harrison. So
yeah. Well, he just, at that point in his career, he just wasn't really in TV land anymore. Spielberg had done amazing stories in the late 80s, but then by the time of this show, he was off doing Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. And so he's like at his kind of peak in many ways. Yeah. So TV was just not going to be in the cards, really. But... Well, we've heard. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Amblin was doing TV, but just Steven wasn't involved.
Yeah. But we've heard, like Vic Armstrong says George wanted Steven to direct the Austria episode, which was the season 2 premiere, and then we've heard also George wanted Steven to direct Scandal of 1920, and so there's kept coming up, and now I
like to think of George just constantly calling Steve like, hey, why? And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and he's like, no.
He's like the friend that is constantly being like, yeah, absolutely, and then just never.
I had the feeling that they talked pretty regularly, but so you're saying two things here, which is Steven would have then not been asked to fight the duel in episode 3 because he would have gotten out of his system. I don't know.
Okay, so you're saying fair trade-off.
And did he get well, but then if he does Scandals, does he bother to do West Side Story? I don't know. He doesn't need it anymore. He did his musical. So, I'm not sure. Alternate universe. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Bizarro world.
Yeah. No, it's very true.
Yeah.
It's such a good, I feel like it's such a good way of writing this episode, is that, like, I think there's the easier version is just like Indy gets with the girl, it's fine for a while, then Indy discovers she's not, it's like, what I like here is that it's not easy for Indy. It's like Indy's constantly like, Mata Hari just, is like, Indy had to spend the night on the couch, it's waiting for her to show up, and he's doing all the wrong things, which is sort of Indiana Jones's staple, even in the movies. But it really is. It's very good writing. It's very good writing.
Well, let's talk about Carrie Fisher. I think, we've learned that she wasn't part of the writing conferences, that this was a script that George sort of reserved to work on with her. And, there's that great Oprah network. I think it was OWN, or one of those networks where she had a talk show, and they talk about it. And, that there was some contention and that they argued, over the dialogue and everything. But I think that comes through. I think Indy's so overwhelmed here, and there are a lot of heady ideas in these conversations that no teenager, certainly, or even young man in his 20s could probably really understand. And that they chose to do it this way, it's really unusual and bold.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that Carrie had not been in the conversation. Had been up there. It makes sense because she had, probably would have dominated in many ways for the attention. That's very cool to learn. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know until we got the script, right? Until we and we usually didn't get the scripts before they shot. We got the scripts during post-production because we needed it to check the dialogue,
right?
And also that that had the logs of what takes were used so that we can pull them off the Nagra, which is the recorder, the digital tapes, and so a lot of you're like, oh, Carrie Fisher, okay, cool, There's the Monty Python guys. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Yeah.
Terry Jones.
Terry Jones. What a prince.
I do love the lighting here too. It's very soft.
Oh, again, Nicolas Roeg. Go look at a Nicolas Roeg movie. It looks just like this. It's crazy how they were able to do that, and it's theoretically an episode of a television show. And NYPD Blue is on next.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like in any other show, the director is work for hire. They show up. They kind of just, if you don't, I mean, I don't mean to take away from TV directors, but your involvement in it is kind of up to you. So many people on the show can just work on autopilot. Whereas Young Indy, it feels like, no, the director they're making their own little mini movie, and it's very much like on the crew to adapt, that they have to raise their game in a way to meet the director's wishes.
Yeah. I mean, we had 3 weeks of post-production per episode. It's unheard of. It's even today, when they only are shooting 10 episodes, I don't know how long they're taking to do post. And then the efficiency is coming out now that they shoot all the episodes and then they do post kind of in one batch. And so we would get, the dailies would come in and it would take 3-4 weeks before you're on the mixing stage. And which was fine when we were working on this, because the show hadn't aired yet. It became a real challenge in season 2 when we were, uploading from the ranch to the satellite distribution, because we were, sort of finishing the morning of the airing.
Wow.
And, or the day before or whatnot. And so that's all that had to be worked out. But wanted them to have the time. Rick supported that. Ed Granulin, who was the head of post-production, sort of had to manage that whole schedule. But, it shows on the screen. I think it's so close. I mean, if you think of this is not only shot for TV because it's a small screen, but if you imagine this on a big, beautiful film screen and how powerful it would be to have these faces that large. I mean, we watch these things on the screens far larger than were in the average home at the time. And, if we watch it if you're not watching on our phone or whatnot, no symbolism here with the fire. None at all. No, Yeah.
Well, this is the famous scene that I think we've got a couple stories about in the podcast documentary that, you'll see these models here, as you see there. And that was considered, inappropriate for television in 1992. So if you were to watch the Laserdisc, and I've done the comparison, and Matthews told us this story, that George superimposed pillars. So you see there are pillars in the set. And so whenever you would get a shot that would include the models in the broadcast version, there's just a nice white column in front of them, which kind of makes the scene not make any sense.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Well, and I when I was watching it last night, I remember I was like, God, I don't remember the nudity, and like literally they were completely blocked by pillars.
I mean, pretty much. Maybe you got like a leg, like it's almost completely obscured.
I mean, I have the somewhere. I actually not sure. I made VHS copies of the Super Betamax Masters at the time. When I was there, I probably shouldn't have. But they didn't have you sign as much paperwork in the day that they make you sign today. So
good old days.
Yeah, and so I have all the episodes I worked on, original episodes. But I ripped them off, if you can say that, off VHS. But I'm just not sure what server they're on. Now I'm gonna have to go find to see what was on the broadcast master.
Because we're gonna want to talk to you about that at some point, Laird. You can leave them in a bag in a trash can in a park, and we'll come by and find them.
I am the guy under the long shot in the espionage episode. That is me for a fraction of a second. So there's a wide shot zooming in, and there's a lamp. It's like me under the lamppost in, where is it, Netherlands or whatnot. And so I had a hat. So I was elected to be the on-screen double it lasts less than a second. So that's my, so if you meet me under that lamp.
Are you like hanging from the telephone pole?
Not on the Prague side, before he goes to Spain.
Before he goes to Spain in the espionage escapades.
Yeah, espionage escapades. There's like some little meetup by a street lamp, right?
It's between. You know what it is? It's the bridging. It's the bridging sequence between. Actually, before he goes to Prague. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes, I've seen that, of course.
Yes, so that is actually supposed. If they did less, they replaced me. But we've shot that on the loading dock of Skywalker Sound, and the tech building. And I'm not very good at lighting matches, so it actually took a lot of takes to get me to light the match. So, and then it cuts on the light on the match light, or it did. I don't know. I probably was replaced. They probably just were too nice to tell me. But
one of the nighttime scenes there. Yeah,
it's a composite scene. Yeah. So anyway, so if you want those episodes, they're by that lamp.
We'll go find it. We'll go track down the lamppost. There we go.
Yeah, where's the tour package where we go to all the shooting locations?
Well, I guess we did miss out on that one, but we can
$20,000.
Yeah. But no, we'd love to do that. But I do love this scene too, because it's like this is for lack of a better term, this is kind of like the right dynamic. Like Indy and Remy come to Paris to have sex. Like that's their intended purpose. And the right person to be with is someone like this, who's also like, I'm just here for a good time. And then we'll both go away, and that's fine. But instead, Indy ends up with someone who has a different kind of agenda in place. And
it's very unclear, I think, what her agenda is. She's manipulating him in some way. It's unclear if she's sort of into that, or if it's feeling some sort of validation that she needs because there's something missing in her life. Is there a maternal element to this because he's younger? And I feel like the episode suggests all of that, and in a good Nicolas Roeg fashion, answers none of it. Like it's all kind of here. You figure it out, which is probably the best way to do it, because anything else would be too on the nose. But I think it's why it stands out in the episodes, because maturity is not the right word, but like it's just a lot more complicated than anything else we really see in the series.
Yeah. I think Carrie Fisher's voice is important here, because I think her struggles with Hollywood and life in general, is and objectification of women, and something that she fought against in her writing and whatnot. And I think in some ways there's some of it here. It's like at some levels, like, what is Mata Hari really doing wrong? Like, she sees a handsome young corporal. He obviously likes what he sees. They're adults, or he's barely an adult, I guess, and they have a relationship. And again, as you said earlier, Indy's the one who's being like, what's the heck is Indy thinking about? I mean, he's moved from his, the end of his virgin phase to, effectively being married or acting like a married, jealous lover. In fact, in many ways, he's the traditional female character, right? She's the one who's staying out late at night, and he's the one at home. And that's a gender reversal, which I think Carrie Fisher also was interested in, and whatnot. Certainly Nicolas Roeg was. The mirroring here, by the way, I love the fact that she's in a mirror. So she's done two pieces to her, all those sort of things. So I actually, in some ways, she's maybe being inconsiderate, but actually she always comes in and apologizes. So is she truly apologizing? I don't know. And she knows that he's going back to the front. I mean, there's that too, right? I mean,
right.
Unless, she thinks that she can get him out of going to the war, back to the war, which she probably can't. What I don't think is going on, though, is I wouldn't think, unless George had sort of primed Carrie about it, was, Indy's lost his mother at a very early age, and is that in the background here? But I don't get a sense that that's weighing on that. Yeah, I don't think it's replacing, his deceased mother. And they're very different, right? I mean, in terms of the way that the actors are and whatnot. Although I will say that Indy does seem to be consistently interested in redheads. But
his mother's not redheaded, so I don't know where that comes from.
Exactly, so it's unrelated. Robin Lively is redhead, and Nancy and even the prostitutes are redheaded. So
it's true.
There's a lot of, and also the girl in the Hollywood Follies is redheaded. There's a number of redheads in this show. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Hollywood Follies has Scandal. Oh, right. Hollywood Follies is redhead, right? And Scandals has a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead.
Yeah,
that's right. Wow.
No, I think she's not old enough to be like his mother, but it's just a really interesting thing. Like he's too immature for this relationship, and she may just be too immature to know that.
Yeah. Interestingly, of course, he's wearing the locket from the Duchess, or whatever she is, the princess, throughout this episode.
Princess Sophie.
Yeah, Princess Sophie. So that actually tells me because he's not. This is late first season, because I think in some of the earlier ones, even though canon-wise he should have had it since 1908, he doesn't. They added it back in, or they added it. I think they'd written the Africa episodes by then, and so knew that he should have had it. So this must be they must have shot this late in the season.
I believe they did. I think certainly after Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, so
it's spotty. I mean, and we get into canon-wise, he has his hat somewhere in his shirt at all times.
That's
so
true.
It's a little murky at times.
One of the things that I so disliked about the zombie book. Remember, there were the really good Indiana Jones novelizations from around this time and going forward, and then they got a little bit jump the I don't know, the shark. But then there was one they tried to bring it back, and somewhere in that zombie novel they talk about that it's one hat. It's the same hat he was given in Utah. It's the same hat the entire time. Which I'm like, why did they put that in? Who cares if it's one hat? Oh well. Anyway, somewhere he's has his rucksack with his hat in it. That's right.
Yeah, so it's still perfectly formed and doesn't wear out.
Yeah,
no wrinkles. No, and it's I forget where it is in the episode. Maybe we already passed it, but there's the great moment where Mata Hari kind of calls him out on being like, well, you're going back to the front soon. Like, what did you expect this relationship to be? Like, that's insane. But it's and it does kind of adds that that humbling element for Indy, because he should know where this is ending, but he doesn't.
Well, that's his immaturity.
That's his immaturity.
And he has that consistently at this point in the narrative, right? Because he wants to marry Vicky, right? Like he has this sort of I want to rush to the end idea.
Yeah.
And he kind of loses that, right, as the show goes on. But he has that early on.
Absolutely.
Right. I forget. Vicky is
Molly's
yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's never going to work.
Yeah.
That's why it failed. And then Molly's a bit of a...
She's blonde, I think.
She is a blonde, but I just meant that in terms of his kind of emotional arc, it's like, where does...
That's an outlier. I don't know that we can read too much into that one.
It's hard to know, like, if it would have stuck, if it...
Well, Molly's before Vicky, right? Ireland is before London.
No, Molly, actually... Oh, was her name Molly as well? You're right.
I
think you were thinking of in Istanbul, which is also Istanbul.
Right. Who he actually is engaged to. Yeah. I love... That's an episode I love.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, that's.
But no, Ireland. I always feel like I forget about Ireland, but it's. What was her name? Was
I don't remember.
Molly too?
Could have been.
No, probably wasn't. By the way, that shot that we had just a moment ago of her sort of seeming to get ready, I think that's actually from the outtake. I think that's like before they rolled cut.
Oh wow, sure. Like they're ready, waiting.
Yeah, and I think they needed a shot to explain how she changed or something. I remember at the time that. Like there was like no sound with it because they hadn't rolled sound yet, so it always stuck out to me as weird. So here's his flashbacks, which is again we're like in Nicolas Roeg territory, all
the stuff. Light through those slatted windows is totally Nicolas Roeg.
Yeah. I wonder if he would have come back and done more episodes. I wonder, like again, they didn't go far enough for some of these star directors. Well, Simon Wincer's probably the most consistent of the directors coming back, but so does art directors, if you will. I put Nicolas Roeg in.
Billy August did too, but
that's right,
because he did
Vienna.
He came back for Northern Italy, Vienna, and then Northern Italy.
Yeah,
but I'm sure if they'd had a script, I'm sure Nicolas Roeg would have done it for a script he was interested in, right? And so it was a question of like, do we have an episode that feels like Nicolas Roeg?
Yeah.
The girl in Ireland was named Maggie.
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 Thank you.
All that mystery. It's no, it is, it's interesting. And it's interesting too that, Nicolas Roeg's career, like he was always kind of struggling to get the next movie funded. I heard an interview with Ian McDiarmid years ago where he talked about like the last time he saw Nicolas Roeg was in Paris or something and said hi. This would have been, in the aughts, probably in the 2000s. But Nick would said he was just, he was trying to get his next movie funded. He was in his 80s or whatever, trying to find money. So.
I love that cut to Flanery looking in the mirror, like after that, like he looks like he's on drugs. And it may be a subtle Apocalypse Now reference, I don't know. But him sort of waking up to himself in the mirror is a really powerful image.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, and is he not like Juliet at the balcony here?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if that was intentional, but that's how I mean, you can read into all these things, a ton of stuff. So,
of course, but
yeah. I also like here that he's dropped off like down the street. The guy can't drive to the.
You just dropped me here, no further.
Yeah.
No further.
It emphasizes Indy's longing. He's running after.
This is a great shot.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I wonder if this is that location it's in the Barcelona episode, and then it's in Mission Impossible. There's this lobby somewhere, and I wonder if that's the same one with the crossing staircases. Just be shooting the angle of it.
And redressing a little bit and relighting it.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean from the cold open for Mission Impossible?
Not the cold open, but the embassy sequence. It's the embassy in Mission Impossible, and it's in that, and then in the Barcelona, it's shot from the top. But I've never seen what the bottom of those stairs look like that I know of. So that could easily be the bottom of those stairs, right from the ground floor. It would match the architecture,
That's great.
It may also be used in the St. Petersburg episode as well, when they go to the rally, just the staircase and the column. So It's just an interesting thing.
That's wonderful.
Well, and the timing of this being shot versus Mission Impossible, again, are only a few years apart, 3-4 years.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't shock me if you looked at the lighting crew and a bunch of the gaffers and stuff like that you'd see overlaps. I don't know if
I'm sure
the Czech film people and TV people kind of separated themselves into different camps, but the fixers who were getting you into places like Prague to go filming, I mean, they just had their Rolodexes,
It probably wasn't that big of a group at the time.
I wouldn't think so. No. More just, fantastic lighting and, just throw a 5K at the end of that hallway and, roll film, whatnot.
That's great.
Yeah.
These two remind me of that shot there. It just reminds me of Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
the beginning.
Sure.
Drunken people walking
and
through.
The fog too. They do the same thing in Mission Impossible, right? They pump that fog in. De Palma and is kind of calling back to the era of filmmaking that Roeg was a part of.
Yeah.
And in the canted angles here, it's just so discombobulated. Or the visuals are telling you he's sort of losing his mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, he's being nuts, right? I mean, on the flip of it, though, there's always little setups of how does Harrison Ford Indy know how to do stuff, and I always thought this was a little bit of the this is why he's climbing around the castle in Last Crusade, because he's used to it,
right.
But of course, he obviously does it better the second time than the first. But
yeah.
I also wondered, is this her place? Is this her, kind of rendezvous spot, or his? I think it's
gotta
hers.
be his, right? You think it could be hers? Yeah.
Don't they?
She's living in a hotel. I don't know if they say, but
because in the next scene, Indy's being interrogated, don't they?
Oh yeah, who lives there? Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
This is great. Knocks him off.
Don't look right. Don't look right. Don't look right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very sturdy shutters. They're not.
Well, they made them that way back then.
Yes, of course.
Oof. There he goes.
Big fall.
And they don't hear that. Yeah. But
Right. And he's fine too, by the way. He's just he's just walking away.
Anger will do that too.
Yeah. Well, him as the jealous, a jealous husband, as she calls him, looking through windows. It's very unlike probably what you think of as Indiana Jones, but and this is handheld, I think. It's just this choice of shaky cam handheld in the police station. It's his world is falling apart.
I love how low the camera gets there too. It's
yeah. Well, if you thought he was small in frame before, I mean, he's down in the bottom quadrant.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I mean, they'll eventually somebody will call him, Corporal Jones later in the episode. Sort of the Defonce thing will sort of be wrapped up.
Yeah, it's because these guys are supposed to sort of be spooks, right? They kind of know who he is, right? They've looked into him. And I guess you could argue they don't really go into it, but we've seen him escape from a German prison camp. I suppose all that could be very suspicious if you're thinking about this guy as a spy,
Rubbish. He's no Nazi. Yeah. That's true though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are actors I think, that the UK casting folks found. I don't know any of them. I don't know if your research has shown much history of these folks. But I think they come in, they play their parts. They probably shot for a day. That probably was it. They didn't have a lot of time. And, but they, as secondary characters, I think it's another strength of the show that they typically are strong. They typically are they kind of do their thing. Probably have done 100 TV shows before this and 100 after. and yet you don't, they sort of fit their part.
Well, they're the kind of actors that, would have been on a British show that was shot on video in very low resolution. So seeing them, lit like this is, and hear those flash forwards you were talking about, which kind of remind me of like the end of Belle de Jour, I think. Don't they execute her in the woods? Am I remembering that right? It feels like a very similar.
I don't know. I don't know that Belle de Jour. What is Belle de Jour? It's
Catherine Deneuve. I don't know the director. I'm embarrassed to say. It's a French film from 60s maybe, and she's a housewife who turns to prostitution, and I'm pretty sure she's executed at the end of the movie. And I think it kind of looks like this.
Well, I mean, Nicolas Roeg would have known those films.
Oh yeah, for sure. They would do that though, like Simon Windsor mentioned when he shot Russia, that he was aware he was shooting the same scene that was in Dr. Zhivago, and so he was just like conscious of like, how am I going to shoot it so it's different, but I'm communicating kind of the same things. So I'm sure they talked about films about Mata Hari and films of a similar subject matter.
Yeah. Well, again, it was very, purposely done. And yet for a new audience, if you didn't know those films, it felt fresh. And if you did know them, hopefully they don't come off as copycat, but rather come off as homage. And as that, given that Indy is in history, he's, in some ways you could think of him contemporary to those contemporary of those time films like Dr. Zhivago or whatnot, or as I said, Paths of Glory earlier, or Paris When It Burns, that kind of film.
Well, and it's something we've largely lost in television, but at this time it was very common to have TV show episodes that would be kind of heavily inspired by a movie or by a very popular film. And it was seen as kind of like a little touchstone for viewers, and this is the Dr. Zhivago episode. This is the Paths of Glory episode. This is the here's the Evil Twin episode. I don't know, but like it's the it was one of the staples of television, and now with serialization and kind of the concept of we take a movie and we stretch it over 10 hours, we've largely lost that, and we don't really have these kind of self-contained stories anymore.
That's interesting to see what happens with the Harry Potter show, and they try to do all the books, and lose that continuity. By the way, speaking back to lighting, I just had to notice too that they're clearly shooting with very red lights here. Not only her hair, but the decor, but it's even more red. And then when you contrast it with the cool blues that are dominant in Verdun, it also makes a really sort of a feast for the eyes that you don't get bored, right? Even though they were never they were never designed to go together. Another reason why I think they sit so well together, because as compared to the two-parter ones that are clearly designed to do that, this is designed to give you stuff. And then it's interestingly, outside of her boudoir, it's less red, a little bit more neutral color. So that's the real hive,
the Carrie Fisher moment. That's what the dish is.
Absolutely. That is the
Absolutely.
The two things struck me about that at the time. One, it was the Carrie Fisher moment, as you said, and two, I thought she had better aim. I don't think it's the first plate that she's thrown.
Yeah, right.
No.
She was quick to it. She was like, there it is.
Yeah.
I do love this moment though at the end where
you feel for both of them. I mean, you should. You do. And she looks so vulnerable. After she's thrown the plate, that she's, and I think that's, I think that's Carrie saying, you can think of her what you want to think of her, but at the end of the day, she's a person, who has feelings and loves and interests. And because it's been established she's doomed, assuming that actually people understood that, I'm not entirely sure that those flashbacks, you don't see her shot, you kind of get the sense, but I guess you probably get enough of a sense that it doesn't end well.
But I love that line there, the final line there. If life is just a little bit easier when you don't have to look at the hard truths.
Yeah.
That feels very, very Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, but it's ultimately Indy has to reject that. I think that's from Indy's character point of view, right? That he isn't that person.
Yeah.
In his later experiences in the show and in the movies, this is wrong. I mean, he actually ends up in a very, almost Jack Ryan kind of way to overlap Harrison Ford characters. Right is right and wrong, right? The slave children have to be rescued. The Nazis have to be stopped, right? The mind control is bad. We don't even want this for ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. But that's the beauty of the whole arc, really. We're still in that era for Indy as a character that he's being kind of disillusioned by the world.
And he doesn't wave. And I think the fact that he doesn't wave back is also interesting, right?
Yeah.
As we say
And that
the
shot.
credits.
It's great.
So awkwardly framed, but in such a great way.
Yeah,
it really does. Yeah.
There we go.
Great episode.
It's such a heavy one. It's so, even without sound, you looking at the shots and the movement, you can't help but be affected by the emotions of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Laird, I mean, you said you'd only be able to be in for a little while, and yet here you are, and we're already.
I think we all knew what was going to happen. It's my pleasure.
Well, it's truly such a joy, and we've wanted to have you back on for a long time, and yet it's been too long. Where I'm going with this, we should have had you on a long time ago.
I'm so glad you guys have continued to run with the passion, and that this documentary is going to happen, which is fantastic. It's there's a lot of good stuff that happened in between the Star Wars trilogies and prior to the sale, and lots of good people, which you've already talked to a lot of them, which is fantastic. And that's I think the thing that strikes me from both the Young Indy era and that era in general is I like to believe anyway that we really cared. George cared for sure, and that's, you see that up through Clone Wars and whatnot too. It's not to take away, it's not just from this period, but that you felt like you were working on something important. Whether it turned out to be or not, it's another question. Certainly not every episode is strong, and that's TV. But that they all deserved respect because you did have a Carrie Fisher or a Nick Roeg. They care. I'm just doing my part. It's not going to fail because of me, and and to elevate it. So, I think there's lots of good stories like that out there.
Absolutely. Well, Laird, I hope we can talk soon and get you on the show for another time, and we'll be in touch, hounding you down, hoping to get a proper interview with you for the inclusion in this documentary. So it's
well, I'd love to be included, but if it fits, and thanks, and good luck with the rest of the day, and happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laird, and we'll
and thanks for the gift. Thanks for backing us. The McClunky
yes, of course. Thank you.
McClunky.
Sorry about the mess.
So much for backing. It's so encouraging, so wonderful.
Well, and everyone listening or watching should do that.
Awesome.
So I know that you guys will just use whatever you guys get to put it into the production of the documentary. So even though I've gone through this on the Kickstarter side, even though you have funded, dreams are bigger than that.
Absolutely.
So I encourage everyone to join me and back the project at for whatever you can afford.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laird. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Well, that was a great conversation we just had with Laird. I always have so much fun with Laird, and he's like a true Young Indy fan, and having been there and seen all this stuff firsthand, he's always a great person to talk to.
Absolutely. The end of the episode always reminds me of the old Indy bookends for the episode, which then transitions back to a supermarket line, which old Indy has just been holding up for seemingly 45 minutes.
As I crossed the street, I knew that I would probably never see her again. Little did I know that in less than a year, she'd be blowing a kiss to the firing squad.
Was she really a spy?
I don't know. No one knew for sure. I don't think she even knew. To the end, she thought that one of her Prince Charmings would come and rescue her. I'll always be sorry it couldn't have been me.
talking about some tabloid. The transition was a tabloid cover.
Gorbachev and Barbara Streisand or something like that.
If anybody in the world believes this, Jane Fonda and Gorbachev.
Isn't she still with what's his name?
It's too good to be true.
In my years, I have found that sometimes truth is more fantastic than what you read here.
And he's like, never believe what you read in the tabloids, you know. I always wonder, do the episodes unfold in real time in the old Indy world, right?
Yeah.
Like to his point, is it longer than a 45-minute story? Like we're watching it unfold. How long does it take to describe all this? And do the people in the room in the supermarket have the full appreciation of the visual feast we just saw? Or does it play as sort of like a cheaper version?
Yeah, it has to be the cheaper. I mean, but there's quite a line, isn't there? In the grocery store.
But they're all listening.
So
it's like everyone in the whole grocery store is wrapped.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's quite a choice to do it that way. But, you know, that's the way it was. That's the way it was.
Back in the 90s, kids, when you would go to the grocery store, you might encounter an old man who would just entertain people. They didn't have television or radio in those days. And so this is what you did for fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 45 minutes goes by. No one was in a hurry back then. That was, the 90s were just such a better time. But yeah, anyway, thank you again for Laird for joining us there. It was such a pleasure to speak with him. He's just been so kind with his time. And thank you, the listeners, for joining us on this episode. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on all the socials. Just search up Young Indie Chroniclers. Daniel mentioned at the top, our Kickstarter is still taking late pledges, so feel free to hop on over there. Kickstarter, search for George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age. And, we're also on Patreon, patreon.com/Young Indie Chroniclers. There you can find out more ways to support the show, get more inside info into our documentary, our podcast, some exclusive episodes, and so much more. So, Daniel, thanks so much for hanging out. And until next time, all you listeners out there, keep on adventuring.
Next time on the Young Indie Chroniclers,
we're thrilled to have returning guest Lucas Seastrom to discuss the episode Benares, one of the more interesting episodes of Corey Carrier's entries.
It was an honor as well, of course, to be back at Skywalker Ranch and to see you guys there for an event that Ben Burt was able to organize.
The episode biases the perspective more towards the skeptic than the supernatural. But it exists in a franchise in which Temple of Doom is a real movie and Indiana Jones invokes the power of Shiva.
This is only something that George Lucas would put on primetime television.